I should have kept my mouth shut. That's what kept echoing in my head later, long after everything had spun completely out of control, beyond recognition. But at that precise moment, as I stood behind the perpetually sticky bar at Rossi's diner, it was 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I was bone-tired. I didn't stop to think. I just reacted. The guy had been incredibly rude to Maria, who was not only our oldest waitress but also a woman who'd busted her, but working double shifts to put all 3 of her kids through college. He'd snapped his fingers at her as if she were some kind of dog, and then had the nerve to complain that his whiskey wasn't up to his highfalutin standards. And all this in a place that still had vinyl booths straight out of 1987. "Maybe you should try the country club next time," I blurted out, my voice coming out sharper than I'd intended as I wiped down the bar. "We're fresh out of golden spoons around here." The diner fell silent, but it wasn't the comfortable quiet of late-night stragglers nursing their coffees. It was the kind of silence that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, that whispered danger in a language older than words themselves. I glanced up. He was staring directly at me. Really staring, the kind of look that cut through all the superficial stuff and saw straight to the parts of you that you kept carefully hidden away. His eyes were dark, almost black, in the dim lighting, and they held something I couldn't quite put my finger on. It wasn't exactly anger. It was something colder, something more calculated. He was beautiful in the way a blade could be considered beautiful, all sharp edges and controlled power. His dark hair was slicked back from a face that looked like it had been carved from marble, with a jawline that looked like it had never softened for anyone. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. Charcoal gray and perfectly tailored to shoulders that suggested he didn't just sign orders. He enforced them. "Did you just talk back to me?" His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried across the diner like a threat wrapped in silk. My heart started pounding against my ribs. Every instinct screamed at me to apologize, to look away, to remember that I was a 26-year-old waitress with student loans and a beat-up Honda, not someone who could afford to offend men who wore violence like it was cologne. But I'd spent way too many years swallowing my words, making myself smaller, letting people like my ex-boyfriend convince me that I was lucky they even tolerated my presence. I was done with shrinking. I said, meeting his gaze even as my hands trembled slightly. "And I'll do it again if you're disrespectful to my staff." Something flickered in those dark eyes of his. Surprise, maybe, or possibly interest. The 2 men flanking him, and of course, he had men flanking him, both built like they spent their free time bench-pressing motorcycles for fun, tensed up visibly. One of them took a step forward, but the beautiful, terrifying man raised a single hand. Just one small gesture, and the hulking bodyguard froze mid-step. That's when I realized that this wasn't just some rich, underserved slumming it in my diner. This was someone who commanded obedience with a single glance, who moved through the world expecting it to rearrange itself for his convenience. This was danger in a $1,000 suit. He stood up slowly, unfolding himself from the booth with the grace of a predator, and started walking toward the bar, toward me. Each step was deliberate, measured, and my body locked up in place like a rabbit watching a wolf approach. He stopped just on the other side of the bar, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something dark and expensive, cedar and smoke. Close enough to see the tiny scar above his left eyebrow, a small imperfection in an otherwise flawless face. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Arya," came out steadier than I felt. "Arya Bennett." "Arya?" He repeated it slowly, like he was tasting each syllable, committing it to memory. "You have no idea who I am, do you?" I should have lied. Should have nodded and apologized and hoped he'd just leave. Should I? The corner of his mouth lifted in what wasn't quite a smile, but close. It transformed his face for just a second, made him look younger, almost human. "No," he said softly. "Maybe that's better." He pulled out his wallet, extracted several bills without even looking at them, and laid them on the bar. I glanced down. $500 for a meal that cost $23. "Keep the change." "Arya Bennett." He turned to leave, his men falling into formation around him like well-trained shadows. Then he paused at the door, looking back over his shoulder. "And be careful. That mouth of yours is going to get you into trouble. The way he said it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded more like a promise. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night in a black Mercedes that whispered money and danger in equal measure. I stood there, staring at the bills on the bar, my heart still racing. Maria appeared at my elbow, her face pale. "Mija," she whispered. "Do you know who that was?" "Should I?" I asked again, but this time my voice shook. "Dante Salvatore." She crossed herself, an old habit from her Catholic upbringing. "His family. They own half this city. The other half is too scared to admit they don't." My stomach dropped. I'd heard the Salvatore name before everyone in Chicago had. They were whispered about in the same breath as ghosts and urban legends. Old money built on older sins. The kind of family that didn't break laws because they were the ones who decided which laws even mattered. "Oh God," I breathed. "I just told a Mafia boss to try the country club." Maria squeezed my shoulder. "Go home, Arya. Lock your doors. Pray he forgets about you." But as I drove home through the empty streets, his face kept replaying in my mind. Those dark eyes, that almost smile, the way he'd looked at me, like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. I had a feeling Dante Salvatore didn't forget anything. I had no idea just how right I was, or that when I opened my apartment door the next morning, I'd find something that would change my life forever. The knock came at 7 a.m. I'd been awake for an hour already, staring at my ceiling and replaying the previous night in my mind. Every single detail felt surreal in the harsh light of day. The silence in the diner, Dante's dark eyes, Maria's fear-stained warning his family owns half the city. I'd barely slept. Every shadow outside my window had seemed like a threat. Every car engine a prelude to violence. By the time dawn broke, I'd almost managed to convince myself that I was being paranoid. Then someone knocked on my door. Not a friendly knock. This was controlled, authoritative, the kind of knock that said, "I know you're in there, and I'm not going anywhere." My hand trembled as I reached for the deadbolt. Through the peephole, I saw a man in an expensive overcoat, silver-haired and distinguished, flanked by two others in dark suits. Not Dante's men from the night before. These were older, more refined, but no less dangerous. I opened the door a crack, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Can I help you?" The silver-haired man smiled. It was warm, almost grandfatherly, and somehow that made it even more terrifying. "Miss Bennett, my name is Lorenzo Salvatore. I apologize for the early hour, but I was hoping we could speak. It's about my son." The world tilted slightly. His son Dante's father stood on my doorstep at 7 o'clock in the morning, looking like he'd stepped right out of a Renaissance painting, all old-world elegance and carefully cultivated power. I don't understand. "May I come in?" His tone was polite, but we both knew it wasn't really a question. Men like Lorenzo Salvatore didn't ask permission. They simply allowed you the illusion of choice. Against every screaming instinct, I unhooked the chain and stepped back. Lorenzo entered my small apartment, with two of his men who immediately positioned themselves by the door and the window. He looked around, taking in my thrift store furniture, the stack of unpaid bills on the counter, and the medical textbooks I'd been too exhausted to return to the library. "Nursing school?" he asked, gesturing toward the books. "Yes, part-time. I work to pay for it." "Admirable." He settled onto my worn couch like it was a throne. "My son told me about last night, about your spirited defense of your colleague." My throat went dry. "I'm sorry if I offended him. I didn't know." Lorenzo raised a hand, cutting me off. The gesture was identical to Dante's from the night before, and I realized just how much the son had learned from the father. "You're not in trouble, Miss Bennett." Quite the opposite. Dante was intrigued. The way he said "intrigued" made my skin prickle. "I don't understand what you want from me." Lorenzo studied me for a long moment, his eyes lighter than Dante's but no less penetrating, seeming to catalog every detail. Finally, he spoke. "My son is 29 years old. He's brilliant, ruthless when necessary, and carries the weight of our family's legacy on his shoulders. He's also lonely, though he'd never admit it. Since his mother passed 5 years ago, he's built walls that no one can penetrate. He leaned forward slightly. Until last night, when a tired waitress looked him in the eye and refused to bow. My heart hammered. Mr. Salvatore, I really don't. I'm here to offer you a proposal, Miss Bennet. His voice was gentle but firm. A marriage proposal. The room spun. I must have misheard. I must have. Excuse me? Marry my son. In return, your student loans disappear. Your debt vanishes. You'll have access to resources most people only dream of: medical school. If that's what you want: security, protection, a life without the constant stress of choosing between rent and food. I laughed. It burst out of me, high and slightly hysterical. You're insane. I met him once for maybe 5 minutes. He insulted my employee, and I called him out. That doesn't lead to marriage proposals. In our world, it does. Lorenzo's expression remained calm, almost sympathetic. You showed something Dante rarely sees. Authenticity, courage without calculation. You didn't know who he was, which means you weren't performing for his benefit. You were simply yourself. So, you want to buy me? My voice came out sharper than intended. Like property. I want to give you a choice. He stood, reaching into his coat and withdrawing an envelope. Inside is a contract. Read it. Think about it. You have 48 hours to decide. And if I say no? Something flickered across his face, not quite a threat, but not quite reassurance either. Then you say no, and we never darken your doorway again. Your life returns to exactly what it was before last night. He moved toward the door, then paused. But ask yourself, Miss Bennet, do you really want it to? You're drowning in debt, working yourself to exhaustion for a dream that keeps getting further away. My son can be difficult, dangerous even, but he's also capable of great loyalty, great protection, and, despite everything, great love, though he's forgotten how to show it. The two men opened the door, and Lorenzo stepped into the hallway. 48 hours, he repeated. Choose wisely. Then they were gone, leaving only the envelope on my coffee table and the lingering scent of expensive cologne. I stared at it for 10 full minutes before my hands stopped shaking enough to pick it up. Inside was a contract elegantly printed on heavy paper. Financial terms that made my head spin, clauses about public appearances, family obligations, discretion, and at the bottom, 2 signature lines, one blank and one already signed in bold, decisive script. Dante Salvatore. He'd agreed to this before I even knew it existed. A small card fell out from between the pages. Just 3 words in that same confident handwriting. Your move, Arya. I should have torn it up. Should have run. Should have done anything except what I actually did. I reached for my phone and dialed the number printed at the bottom of the contract. A familiar low voice answered on the first ring. Miss Bennet, I was hoping you'd call. The address Dante gave me led to the kind of building I'd only ever seen in magazines. A converted historic mansion in the Gold Coast. All stone and wrought iron and old money. A uniformed doorman opened the car door before I'd even unbuckled my seatbelt, and I stumbled out onto marble steps that probably cost more than my entire net worth. Miss Bennet, he said with a slight bow. Mr. Salvatore is expecting you. 10th floor, penthouse. Of course, it was the penthouse. The elevator was lined with mirrors and dark wood, and I spent the endless ride up studying my reflection. I changed 3 times before finally settling on simple black pants and a cream blouse, trying to look presentable without seeming like I was trying too hard. Now, I wondered if I should have worn armor instead. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, and I stepped into a space that completely stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Lake Michigan, the morning sun turning the water into liquid gold. The furniture was modern but comfortable, all clean lines and rich textures. Art that I suspected was original hung on exposed brick walls. Everything was tasteful, expensive, and somehow still felt lived in rather than staged. You came. I turned. Dante stood in the doorway to what looked like a kitchen, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Without the suit jacket and the shadows of the diner, he looked younger, more human but no less dangerous. You didn't think I would? I thought you'd be smart enough to run. He moved toward me with that same controlled grace from the previous night, and I forced myself to stand still. Most people are. Most people probably have better survival instincts. That almost smile again, the one that transformed his face for a heartbeat. Come, we should talk. He led me to a seating area by the windows, gesturing to a leather chair while he settled onto the sofa across from me. A coffee service sat on the table between us, elegant porcelain that probably had a pedigree longer than mine. You read the contract, he said, not a question. I did. It's insane. It's practical. He poured coffee with steady hands, offered me a cup. You need money and security. I need something else. A wife you've met once. Partner who isn't afraid of me. He took a sip of his coffee, those dark eyes never leaving my face. Do you know how rare that is in my world, Arya? Everyone either fears me or wants something from me, usually both. You looked at me last night and saw just a rude customer. I didn't know exactly. He leaned forward slightly. You didn't know? Which means you reacted honestly, without calculation, without agenda. Do you have any idea how valuable that is? I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup, needing something to hold on to. Your father said you've been lonely since your mother died. That you need someone who can penetrate your walls. Something shuddered in his expression. My father is sentimental. Is he wrong? Silence stretched between us. Outside, a boat moved across the lake, small and distant. Finally, Dante spoke, his voice quieter than before. My mother was the only person who ever challenged me, who told me when I was being an arrogant bastard, who reminded me that power without humanity makes you a monster. He set down his cup with careful precision. When she died, I forgot how to be anything except what the family needed: strong, ruthless, untouchable. And now I'm tired of being untouchable. He met my eyes, and for just a moment, I saw past the walls, saw the man beneath the reputation, lonely and aching and so carefully hidden that most people would never even know he existed. I need someone who will call me on my __, who won't just agree with everything I say because of my name. Someone real. You could find that without a contract and a marriage license. Could I? He stood, moving to the windows, his back to me. Every woman I meet knows who I am before I open my mouth. Knows what I'm worth. What I can offer. What I expect. They perform for me, Arya. They show me the version of themselves they think I want to see. But you were exhausted and angry and completely yourself. That's what I need. I stood too, crossing to stand beside him at the window. Up close, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched slightly. He wasn't as calm as he was pretending to be. What if I'm terrible at being a mafia wife? What if I can't handle your world? Then we figure it out together. He turned to face me, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are, the woman who told me off in a diner and didn't blink. That's who I need beside me. This is crazy. Yes, I should say no. Probably. Your world is dangerous. Absolutely. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from my face. His fingers were warm, careful. But I'll protect you. That's the one thing I can promise, Arya. Whatever else happens, whatever complications arise, you'll be safe. That's not negotiable. I should have stepped back. Should have walked away from the beautiful, broken man and his impossible proposal. Should have chosen the safety of my small, struggling life over the danger of his vast, complicated one. Instead, I heard myself say, 48 hours, your father said. I'm taking all of them to decide. Dante's smile was real this time and devastating. I wouldn't expect anything less. As the elevator carried me back down to street level, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Dinner tomorrow night. I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock. Let me show you what you'd be saying yes to. D. I stared at the message, my heart racing. I'd asked for time to decide, but we both knew the truth. I'd already started falling. Dante arrived at exactly 7 p.m., driving a sleek black Aston Martin that probably violated several noise ordinances just by existing. I'd spent 3 hours getting ready, which was approximately 2 hours and 55 minutes longer than I usually spent on my appearance. Now, watching him climb out of the car in a dark suit that made him look like sin personified, I wondered if I should have spent "You look beautiful," he said simply, opening the passenger door. I'd chosen a deep burgundy dress, the nicest thing I owned, bought for a cousin's wedding 2 years ago. Compared to the women who probably usually rode in this car, I felt like a child playing dress-up. "Thank you. You look dangerous." His laugh was low and genuine, honest as always. "Good." The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu, with soft lighting, live piano music, and waiters who moved like dancers. Every table held couples who looked like they belonged in a different tax bracket than humanity. Dante had reserved a private corner booth. Of course, he had. "Tell me about nursing school," he said once we'd ordered. "Why healthcare?" I wasn't expecting the question. Most people asked about the Salvatore family, the contract, the insanity of our situation. Instead, he wanted to know about me. My little brother, Jamie, had leukemia when he was 7. I was 14, and I spent more time in hospitals than at home for 2 years. The memory still ached, even though Jamie had been in remission for 9 years now. The nurses were the ones who made it bearable. They talked to him like he was a person, not just a sick kid. They taught me how to advocate for him when the doctors talked over our heads. They saved his life, and they saved mine too, in a way. Dante listened intently, his full attention on me in a way that made me feel simultaneously exposed and valued. "Is he well now?" "Thriving. He's at Northwestern, studying engineering. Calls me once a week to complain about his roommate and ask for money." I smiled despite myself. "He's the reason I can't fail. Can't stop. I need to finish school so I can give him the life Mom and Dad couldn't. They're gone. Car accident 4 years ago." I took a sip of wine to ease the tightness in my throat. It was just bad timing, bad weather, bad luck. Jamie was still in high school. I was 22, working retail, and suddenly responsible for everything. So I kept working, got him through graduation, and got him into college. Nursing school was supposed to be my turn, but life is expensive, and debt is heavy. Dante's expression softened. "You've been drowning for 4 years. Treading water," I corrected. "There's a difference." "Not much of one." He leaned back, studying me. "Your brother, he knows about this." "About me? God, no. He'd lose his mind, try to protect me, probably throw punches at people who could snap him like a twig." I shook my head. "He can't know, not until I figure out what this even is." "Smart. Keep him separate from my world as long as possible." Something dark crossed Dante's face. "It's not pretty, Arya. The things I do, the decisions I make, they're necessary, but they're not noble. I need you to understand that before you decide." Before I could respond, a man approached our table. Tall, blonde, handsome in a cold, calculating way. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Dante, I heard you were dining here tonight." His gaze slid to me, assessing. "Introducing your new acquisition to the finer things." The temperature at the table dropped 10 degrees. "Victor." Dante's voice was pure ice. "You should return to your table before you say something we'll both regret." "I'm just making conversation. You've always been so territorial about your possessions." Victor's smile widened. "But perhaps this one can think for herself. Tell me, sweetheart, does he warn you about the bodies? Or does he save that for after the wedding?" Dante moved so fast I barely even saw it. One moment he was seated, the next he had Victor by the throat, slammed up against the exposed brick wall. The restaurant went silent. "Listen very carefully," Dante said quietly, his voice deadly calm. "You will apologize to the lady. Then you will leave. And if you ever approach her again, if you so much as look at her wrong, I will dismantle your father's operations piece by piece until there's nothing left but debt and memory. Are we clear?" Victor's face had gone purple. He managed a strangled, "Clear." Dante released him, stepping back smoothly. Victor stumbled away, and the restaurant slowly resumed its normal rhythm, carefully not watching, carefully not seeing. Dante returned to the table, straightening his cuffs like nothing had even happened, but I saw his hands shake slightly before he curled them into fists. "I should take you home," he said. "You've seen enough." "Wait." I reached across the table, covering his fist with my hand. His skin was warm, the muscles tense. Beneath my touch. Who was that? What did he mean about bodies? "Arya? No. If I'm even considering this, Considering you, then I need to know. I need the truth. He stared at our joined hands, then slowly, deliberately turned his palm up and threaded his fingers through mine. The gesture felt more intimate than anything we'd shared so far. A silent promise whispered between skin. Viktor Koslov, son of a rival family. They've been trying to move into our territory for years, and I've been discouraging them. Sometimes that discouragement requires violence. He met my eyes, and the raw honesty there stole my breath. I've killed people, Arya. Not often, not without cause, but I've done it. I've made decisions that haunt me. I've chosen power over mercy because that's what keeps my family safe. That's who you'd be tying yourself to. Not just wealth and influence, but blood and darkness, too. I should have pulled my hand away. Should have been horrified. Instead, I asked, did they deserve it? The people you've killed? Does anyone deserve to die? His thumb traced circles on my palm, a gentle contrast to the weight of our conversation. They were threats to my family, to innocent people in our territory. I gave them chances to walk away. They didn't take them. Then you protected people. I squeezed his hand. That's not the same as being a monster, isn't it? No. Monsters enjoy the violence. You carry it like a burden. I could see it in his eyes. The guilt, the weight, the carefully controlled darkness. That's the difference. He pulled my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that sent heat racing through my veins. You're either very wise or very foolish, Arya Bennett. Probably both. As he drove me home later, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd crossed some invisible line, that I'd seen the real Dante Salvatori, the man behind the legend, and I wasn't running. I was leaning closer, drawn by a force I couldn't quite name. I called him the next morning. I need to see where you work. If I'm going to understand your world, I need to see all of it, not just expensive restaurants and penthouse suites. Silence on the other end, thick with unspoken questions. Then are you sure? No, but I'm asking anyway. He picked me up an hour later. This time we drove through neighborhoods that never appeared in tourist brochures, areas where buildings wore their history like scars, where people watched cars pass with suspicious eyes, their gazes lingering just a little too long. We stopped in front of a warehouse that had seen better decades, its brick facade stained with grime and shadowed by faded graffiti. Dante helped me out of the car, and two men immediately appeared from the shadows, nodding respectfully to him before falling into step behind us. Their presence a silent reassurance and a subtle warning. Stay close, Dante murmured, his hand finding the small of my back. Some of my men are unused to civilian presence. Inside, the warehouse was a hive of activity. Men moved crates, spoke in low voices, counted cash at scarred tables. The atmosphere thick with unspoken tension and the scent of stale cigarettes. Every head turned when we entered. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Gentlemen, Dante said calmly, this is Arya Bennett. You will treat her with the same respect you show me. Anyone who doesn't will answer to me personally. Understood? A chorus of yes, sir, echoed through the space, the words hanging in the air like a promise and a threat. He led me through the warehouse, explaining operations with clinical precision, his voice devoid of emotion as he described the intricate workings of his world. Import logistics, territory management, protection services for local businesses. Some of it skirted legality. Some of it crashed through legal boundaries like they were tissue paper, the sheer audacity of it breathtaking and terrifying at the same time. This is where the money comes from, he said as we stood in what appeared to be an office overlooking the floor, the room sparse and functional, a stark contrast to the opulence of his penthouse. Not all of it. We have legitimate businesses, too. Real estate, restaurants, import companies. But this is the foundation everything else is built on. I watched men load crates into trucks, their movements precise and efficient, each action carrying a weight of consequence. What's in those? Do you really want to know? I turned to face him, meeting his gaze without flinching. Yes. Mostly liquor, bypassing luxury taxes, some prescription medications for people who can't afford them through legal channels. Nothing that would horrify you, I hope, but nothing entirely legal either. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed, his posture relaxed but his eyes watchful. I'm not a saint, Arya. I told you that. But you're not selling drugs to kids or trafficking people. Never. That's a hard line for me, for our family. We may operate outside the law, but we have rules, codes, lines we don't cross. A knock interrupted us. One of the men from earlier stuck his head in. Boss, we have a situation. Koslov's men tried to intercept the shipment to Cicero. 3 of our guys are at Northwestern Memorial. They'll live, but it was close. Dante's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The temperature in the room dropped, and the man he'd been seconds ago, the one explaining his world to me with a hint of vulnerability, vanished. In his place stood the Dante from the diner, the one who commanded obedience with a glance, the ruthless leader who inspired fear and loyalty in equal measure. Get Marco and his team. I want every man we have watching Koslov's movements. And someone send flowers to the hospital with a note that they'll be compensated for injuries sustained in my service. His voice was ice and iron, each word clipped and precise. And send a message to Victor. If he wants war, I'll give him one. He won't survive. The man nodded and disappeared, melting back into the shadows as quickly as he'd appeared. Dante closed his eyes, took a long breath, and when he opened them again, he was looking at me with something like apology. A flicker of regret in the depths of his dark eyes. You should go. This is about to get ugly, and you don't need to see it. What are you going to do? What I have to? He moved toward me, cupping my face gently. Despite the fury I could feel coiling beneath his skin, the barely suppressed violence threatening to erupt. I'm going to protect my people. That might mean violence. It will definitely mean decisions you won't like. Because of what happened at the restaurant, because Victor saw us together partially, but this has been building for months. Victor's been testing boundaries, pushing into our territory. Last night was disrespect. Today's attack is a declaration. His thumb traced my cheekbone, his touch surprisingly gentle given the circumstances. I need to respond or I look weak. And weakness in my world gets people killed. I covered his hand with mine, grounding him, anchoring him to the present moment. Will you be safe? Something softened in his expression, a brief glimpse of vulnerability that quickly vanished. Worried about me, Arya? Apparently I'm an idiot that way. He kissed me then, not gently, not carefully, but with the pent-up intensity of someone who'd been holding back for too long. A kiss that spoke of desperation and desire and a desperate need for connection. His mouth was firm, demanding, and I melted into him, gasping when his hand slid into my hair and tilted my head back for better access. The world tilting on its axis as the kiss deepened. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathing hard, the air thick with unspoken emotions. I need to handle this, he said roughly, his voice husky with lingering desire. But tonight, have dinner with me again at the penthouse. Just us. I'll cook. You cook badly, but I try. That almost smile again, the one I was starting to crave, the one that revealed a glimpse of the man beneath the surface, the man hidden behind the walls he'd built around himself. Say yes. Yes. He kissed me again, softer this time, a lingering promise of what was to come, then called for one of his men to drive me home, his attention already shifting back to the crisis at hand. As I left, I heard him barking orders, his voice hard and uncompromising, the sound echoing through the warehouse. I'd just seen both sides of Dante Salvatore, the man who kissed me breathless, and the boss who commanded an empire, the two halves of a whole that were both terrifying and undeniably compelling. And instead of being terrified, I was fascinated, drawn deeper into his world despite the inherent dangers. That evening, Jamie called. Hey sis, you sound weird. Everything okay? I looked at the contract, still sitting on my coffee table, a stark reminder of the decision I was about to make. At the missed calls from Maria, checking on me, her concern a familiar comfort. At my reflection in the darkened window, a woman standing at a crossroads, about to choose a path that would change everything. A path shrouded in darkness and uncertainty. Yeah, I said, surprising myself with the truth in my voice. I think it might be. After I hung up, I pulled out my phone and texted Dante. I need one more thing before I decide. I need to meet your family. His response came immediately, the words flashing across the screen like a challenge. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Be ready for scrutiny. They're not gentle. I stared at the message, my heart pounding in my chest, a mixture of fear and anticipation swirling within me. 48 hours was almost up, and I was walking deeper into the darkness instead of running toward the light, drawn by an irresistible force I couldn't explain. The Salvatore estate sat on 10 acres outside the city, hidden behind stone walls and wrought iron gates that looked like they'd been forged to keep out armies, a fortress of wealth and power that seemed both imposing and strangely alluring. As Dante's car pulled up the long drive, I saw the house, no, the mansion, and my breath caught in my throat. It was beautiful in a way that felt almost weaponized, a display of opulence that was both breathtaking and intimidating. 3 stories of old-world architecture, all stone and tall windows, and the kind of elegance that whispered power in every line. The entire estate radiating an aura of history and wealth that was both captivating and unsettling. Nervous? Dante asked, his hand finding mine, his touch a reassuring presence in the face of my growing anxiety. Terrified. Good. That means you're smart. He squeezed gently, his eyes holding a mixture of amusement and something else, something deeper that I couldn't quite decipher. Just be yourself. That's what got you here. What if they hate me? Then they hate you. But that won't change my mind. He pulled up to the entrance where a valet immediately appeared, his movements smooth and practiced, a testament to the wealth and privilege that permeated every aspect of this place. You've already impressed the 2 people who matter most, my father and me. Everyone else is just noise. The front door opened before we reached it, revealing Lorenzo standing there smiling warmly, his presence radiating an aura of power and control that was both subtle and undeniable. Arya, welcome to our home. Inside was even more overwhelming. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, art that belonged in museums, and people, so many people, all turning to look at us as we entered a massive dining room, their gazes scrutinizing, assessing, each one a silent judge. Everyone, Lorenzo announced, this is Arya Bennett, Dante's guest. A woman about my age approached first, her movements confident and graceful, her presence radiating an effortless elegance. She was stunning, with dark hair, sharp features, and dressed in designer clothes that made my carefully chosen dress feel like burlap, the contrast between our styles highlighting the vast difference in our worlds. I'm Valentina, Dante's cousin, the family gossip and occasional voice of reason. Mostly gossip, added a man beside her, grinning, his eyes twinkling with mischief. I'm Marco, also cousin, also blessed with the Salvatore good looks and cursed with the Salvatore temper. They seemed friendly enough, but I could feel the assessment happening, the silent judgment taking place behind their smiles. Every smile was a test, every question a trap I might not see until I'd already fallen into it. Dinner was a theatrical production, a carefully orchestrated performance of wealth and power. Course after course appeared, each more elaborate than the last, a dazzling display of culinary artistry. Conversation flowed in Italian and English, sometimes switching mid-sentence, the languages intertwining like the branches of a complex family tree. I caught references to business deals, territorial disputes, family history that stretched back generations, snippets of information that hinted at the intricate web of power and influence that define the Salvatore family. And through it all, Dante's hand would find mine under the table, a steady presence, an anchor in the swirling sea of unfamiliar faces and unspoken expectations. Halfway through the meal, an older woman spoke up from the far end of the table, her voice sharp and cutting through the polite chatter like a shard of glass. So, Arya, you're a waitress. The table went quiet, all eyes turning to me, the silence thick with anticipation. I recognized the tone, the subtle condescension, the implication that I didn't belong, the thinly veiled disdain that dripped from every word. I'm a nursing student, I said evenly, meeting her gaze without flinching. I waitress to pay for school. How industrious, she said, her lips curling into a tight smile. Though I imagine that won't be necessary if you marry into our family. You'll have everything you could want. Except the satisfaction of earning it myself, I replied, my voice clear and unwavering. Money can't buy that. Valentina snorted wine through her nose, spluttering and coughing. Her face flushed with suppressed laughter. Marco laughed outright, slapping his knee with genuine amusement. Even Lorenzo looked pleased, a hint of approval in his eyes. The older woman, Dante's aunt, I learned later, simply pursed her lips and said nothing more, her disapproval palpable despite her silence. After dinner, Lorenzo invited me into his study, a room that exuded an air of masculine power and refined taste. Dante started to follow, but his father shook his head, his gaze firm and unwavering. Alone, son. We need to talk. The study was all leather and wood and the lingering scent of cigars, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken words and untold secrets. Lorenzo poured 2 glasses of amber liquid, the rich scent of aged whiskey filling the air, and handed me one before settling into a chair across from me, his eyes scrutinizing my every move. You handled Bianca well, he said, his voice smooth and controlled. She's been trying to marry Dante off to her daughter for years. Your very existence offends her. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. She needed the reminder that this family doesn't own my son's future. He studied me over the rim of his glass, his gaze piercing and insightful, as if he could see straight through to my soul. You're wondering if this is real, if Dante truly wants this, or if I'm manipulating both of you. I hadn't been, but now that he mentioned it, the question hung in the air, a seed of doubt planted in my mind. Are you? I gave him the option, told him I'd met a woman who might be perfect for him. He could have said no, could have refused to sign the contract. Lorenzo leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper, his eyes locking onto mine. But he watched the security footage from the diner 4 times that night. Arya, he studied you like you were a puzzle he couldn't solve. That's when I knew. Knew what? That you'd already gotten past his defenses. That for the first time since Isabella died, he was interested in someone real. He set down his glass, the movement deliberate and precise. My son has been dead inside for 5 years. Oh, he functions, leads, makes decisions, but he doesn't live. Not until he met you. Footsteps in the hallway made us both look up, our conversation interrupted by an unwelcome intrusion. But it wasn't Dante who appeared in the doorway. It was a woman I didn't recognize, younger than me, beautiful in a fragile way, her delicate features marred by an expression of deep distress. Lorenzo, I need to speak with you. It's about. She stopped, seeing me, her eyes widening in surprise. I'm sorry. I didn't know you had company. Arya, this is Elena Russo, family friend. Something in Lorenzo's tone shifted, a subtle change that didn't escape my notice. Elena, this isn't a good time. But she didn't leave. Instead, she stared at me. Her gaze filled with a mixture of resentment and desperation, and I saw something break in her expression, a flicker of pain that revealed the depth of her emotions. You're the woman, the one Dante's been seeing. We're getting to know each other. Does he know? She asked Lorenzo, ignoring me entirely, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. Did you tell him before parading her in front of the family? Elena, enough. Lorenzo stood, all warmth gone from his voice, his expression hardening with a clear warning. You need to leave. Tell her. Elena said, tears streaming down her face, her voice cracking with emotion. Tell her about the contract, about what it really means. About. Enough? Dante's roar from the doorway made us all jump, the force of his anger reverberating through the room. He strode into the room, fury radiating from every line of his body, his presence filling the space with a palpable sense of danger. Get out, Elena, now. She fled, sobbing, her retreat leaving a vacuum of tension in her wake. I stood on shaky legs, my mind reeling from the sudden turn of events. Someone want to tell me what the hell that was about? Dante and Lorenzo exchanged a look, a silent communication passing between them. Then Dante cursed in Italian, his frustration evident, and ran a hand through his hair, his movements agitated. We should talk privately. Damn right we should. Back in the car, the silence was suffocating, the unspoken questions hanging heavy in the air. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. the need for answers overriding my fear of what I might hear. Who is she to you? My father's choice. Before I met you, Dante's jaw was tight, his voice strained. Elena Russo, we were supposed to merge our families. I'd agreed to it because it was practical, strategic. I didn't care who I married because I didn't plan to love them anyway. He paused, taking a deep breath, and then he pulled over suddenly, stopping the car on the side of the road, his movements abrupt and decisive. He turned to face me, his eyes searching mine, his expression raw and vulnerable. Now I care. Now I want something real, even if it scares the hell out of me. Elena knows the engagement is off. I told her before my father even approached you, but she's having trouble accepting it. Because she loves you. Because she loves the idea of being my wife, of the power and status that brings. She doesn't know me, Arya. Not really. He reached for my hand, his touch tentative, hesitant. But you're starting to. And that terrifies me more than any rival family or business deal ever could. I should have pulled away. Should have demanded he take me home. Should have recognized this for what it was. A mess I didn't need. A tangled web of emotions and obligations that I was ill-equipped to navigate. Instead, I leaned across the console and kissed him hard, claiming him, staking my claim in this chaotic world he inhabited. When I pulled back, his eyes were dark with desire and something deeper, a flicker of hope that warmed my soul. I'm still deciding, I whispered against his lips, but I'm leaning toward yes. His answering smile was pure sin, a glimpse of the devilish charm that had captivated me from the beginning. Then let me help tip the scales. I should have known better than to think one woman's tears would be the end of it, that the complications would stop there. 3 days after the family dinner, someone slashed my tires, a blatant act of intimidation that sent a shiver of fear down my spine. The next day, my locker at the diner was broken into, the lock jimmied open, the contents rifled through. Nothing taken, just violated. A message delivered loud and clear. Dante assigned me security, 2 silent men who followed me everywhere, their presence both comforting and suffocating. At first, I protested, resenting the intrusion into my life. But after finding my apartment door unlocked when I knew I'd locked it, the subtle threat unmistakable, I stopped complaining, acknowledging the reality of my situation. The 48 hours were long past, the deadline I'd set for myself a distant memory. I still hadn't signed the contract, the final act of commitment looming over me like a dark cloud. You need to decide, Dante said one evening in his penthouse, his voice laced with frustration. We'd fallen into a routine. Dinners together, long conversations that stretched into the early morning, stolen kisses that left us both breathless and wanting more. But I hadn't signed, the weight of the decision paralyzing me. I know. Then what's stopping you? He turned from the window, his silhouette framed against the city lights, and I saw the frustration in his eyes, the barely suppressed impatience that threatened to erupt. Talk to me, Arya. Tell me what you need. I need to know I'm not making the biggest mistake of my life. I stood pacing, my movements agitated, my thoughts swirling in a chaotic mess. I need to know that 6 months from now you won't wake up and realize you wanted the fantasy, not the reality. That I'm not just some novelty because I wasn't impressed by your name. Is that really what you think? I don't know what to think. The words burst out of me, fueled by weeks of uncertainty and mounting pressure. This is insane, Dante. People don't get married like this. They don't meet once and decide to build a life together. They date. They learn each other. They lie, he interrupted quietly, his voice devoid of emotion. They perform. They show each other carefully curated versions of themselves until someone gets tired of the act. He crossed to me, his movements deliberate and purposeful, and cupped my face in his hands, his touch gentle despite the intensity of his gaze. You've seen the worst parts of me, the violence, the control, the darkness I carry, and you're still here. That's more honest than most people get in years of dating. Or I'm an idiot. Or you're brave. His thumb traced my lower lip, his touch sending a shiver of awareness through me. Sign the contract, Arya. Take a chance on us. I promise you, whatever happens, whatever complications arise, I will never make you regret choosing me. I wanted to believe him, wanted to fall into those dark eyes and trust that this beautiful, broken man could be my future. But doubt lingered, a persistent voice whispering in my ear, warning me to be cautious. Then my phone rang. Jamie's name flashed on the screen, his caller ID, a beacon of familiarity in this alien world. I answered immediately, my heart leaping into my throat. Hey, what's up, sis? Something weird is happening. His voice was tight with fear, sending a jolt of adrenaline through my system. There are guys watching my dorm. Black SUV, tinted windows. They've been there for hours. And when I tried to leave, they followed me to class. What the hell is going on? My blood turned to ice, the weight of the situation crashing down on me. I looked at Dante, who'd gone very still, his expression hardening with a mixture of fury and protectiveness. Stay inside. Lock your door. I'll handle it. Arya, just trust me. Don't leave your room. I hung up and turned on Dante, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. Who's watching my brother? Not me. His expression was thunderous, his eyes flashing with barely suppressed rage. But I can guess. Marco. His cousin appeared within seconds, his movements swift and efficient, his presence radiating an aura of quiet competence. Boss? Viktor Koslov. Is he making moves on Arya's family? Marco's expression told me everything I needed to know, confirming my worst fears. We got intel 2 hours ago. I was about to brief you. He's put surveillance on the brother, checking vulnerabilities. I couldn't breathe, the room spinning around me. He's using Jamie to get to me. To get to you? Not if I stop him first. Dante was already moving, his actions decisive and commanding, pulling out his phone and barking orders into it. I want every man we have on this. The brother gets protected around the clock, and I want Viktor brought to me, alive but barely. No. I grabbed his arm, stopping him in his tracks. No, you don't get to do this. You don't get to pull Jamie into your world. He's already in it. Dante's control cracked, his anger erupting to the surface. The moment Viktor saw you with me, your brother became a target. That's how this works, Arya. That's what I tried to warn you about. My world doesn't stay contained. It spreads, touches everyone you love. Then maybe I should walk away. Maybe walk away? He laughed bitterly, the sound devoid of humor. You think that saves him now? Viktor knows who Jamie is, knows he matters to you. Whether you marry me or not, your brother is compromised. The only question is whether he has my protection or not. The truth of it hit me like a physical blow, the realization dawning on me with brutal clarity. I'd been so focused on my decision, on what I wanted, that I hadn't considered the consequences of not deciding. By hesitating, by keeping one foot in Dante's world and one foot out, I'd left Jamie vulnerable, exposed to the dangers that lurked in the shadows. What do I do? My voice broke, the fear overwhelming me. How do I keep him safe? Dante pulled me against his chest, his arms solid and sure around me, his presence a comforting haven in the storm. You let me protect both of you. You sign the contract and become family, which means Jamie becomes family too, under my protection, untouchable by anyone who values their life. And if I don't, then I protect him anyway because he matters to you. But it's harder, less official, more vulnerable to challenge. He pulled back, meeting my eyes, his gaze intense and unwavering. This is my fault. I should have anticipated this. Should have put security on him from the beginning. I let myself believe we had time. I saw it then, the guilt eating at him, the fury at himself for not predicting every angle, for not protecting the people he cared about. This was why he was so controlled, so careful, because caring about people meant they could be used against him. Loving people made them targets. Okay, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Okay, I'll sign. Arya, not because of fear, not because you're forcing me. I framed his face with my hands, feeling the tension in his jaw, the weight of responsibility he carried on his shoulders. Because you're right. I'm already in this. Jamie's already in this, and I'd rather face it with you than without you. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He kissed me with desperate intensity, and I kissed him back, pouring 4 days of indecision and fear and hope into the connection. Our lips meeting in a silent vow. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine, his breath warm against my skin. I won't let anything happen to him. I swear it. I know. That's why I'm signing. 2 hours later, my signature joined his on the contract, the ink a dark stain on the pristine white paper. The act was done, the decision made, and the consequences were about to unfold. The ink was barely dry when Dante's phone rang, shattering the fragile peace that had settled over us. "We found him," Marco said, and I heard the satisfaction in his voice, even through the speaker. "Victor, he's at his father's estate, unprotected." Dante's expression shifted into something cold and lethal, the transformation chilling to witness. "Then it's time to send a message." "I'm coming with you," I said, my voice firm and unwavering. "Absolutely not." He threatened Jamie. He made this personal. "I'm coming." We stared at each other, a test of wills, our eyes locked in a silent battle of dominance. Finally, Dante nodded once, his acceptance grudging but undeniable. "Then stay close. And Arya, what you're about to see, there's no coming back from it. Once you witness this, you'll know exactly who I am, what I'm capable of." "Good," I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. "Show me." The Koslov estate was smaller than the Salvatore compound, but no less fortified, the walls surrounding the property a testament to the wealth and power of the family within. We drove through gates that had been blown open, the twisted metal a stark symbol of the violence that had already transpired. Dante's men worked efficiently and ruthlessly, their movements precise and coordinated, their faces grim and determined. We pulled up to a house that blazed with lights and echoed with shouts, the scene a chaotic mix of activity and destruction. "Stay in the car," Dante ordered, his voice leaving no room for argument. But I was already opening my door, defying his command. "We're married now. On paper, at least that means I see all of it." His jaw clenched, his frustration evident, but he didn't argue. Instead, he took my hand and led me inside, through corridors filled with Dante's men, their presence a silent and deadly force, past offices that had been turned inside out, the contents scattered and destroyed, the scene a chaotic testament to the violence that had taken place. Victor was in the study, on his knees, hands zip-tied behind his back, his posture defeated, his spirit broken. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye, staining his face a grotesque mask. When he saw Dante, he smiled, a broken, desperate thing, his expression a mixture of defiance and resignation. "Salvatore, come to finish the job? That depends on you." Dante's voice was calm, conversational, and somehow that made it more terrifying than any shout or threat. "You put surveillance on an innocent civilian, a college kid with no connection to our business. That breaks the rules, Victor. Old rules, sacred ones. He's connected to her." Victor's gaze slid to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and contempt. "Your little waitress wife, the one you're risking everything for. Watch your tone when you speak about my wife." The words were soft, barely audible, but they carried a weight of menace that sent a shiver down my spine. "Deadly. I'm trying to decide whether to kill you or simply destroy everything you've ever built. Give me a reason to choose mercy." "Mercy?" Victor laughed, a hollow, mocking sound. "You don't know the meaning of the word. What happened next was burned into my memory forever, an image etched into my soul that would haunt my dreams for years to come." Dante moved with predatory precision, his movements fluid and graceful, like a panther stalking its prey. He crouched in front of Victor, his eyes locking onto his, and pulled out a knife, beautiful and terrible, the blade catching the light, its polished surface reflecting the cold, calculating glint in Dante's eyes. He held it against the other man's throat, the sharp edge pressing against his skin, a silent threat that needed no words. "Listen carefully," Dante said quietly, his voice a low, menacing rumble. "You have two choices. 1, I end this right now. Quick, painless, merciful. Your family keeps their holdings and we part as enemies, sure, but not as monsters. 2. You live, but I dismantle everything your father built. Every business, every alliance, every safe house, gone. By the time I'm finished, the Koslov name will mean absolutely nothing except a cautionary tale about what happens when you threaten my family. Some choice, huh? It's more than you gave Jamie Bennett when you sent men to intimidate a portable 19-year-old kid. The knife pressed harder, drawing a thin line of blood. Choose now. I should have looked away. I should have felt horrified, disgusted, terrified. Instead, I watched my husband defend my family with ruthless precision and felt something dark and primal wake up deep inside me. This was the man beneath the suits and the charm, the killer, the boss, the force of nature who'd carved out an empire and held it with blood-stained hands. And he was doing it for Jamie. For me? Option 2, Victor gasped. I choose option 2. Dante pulled the knife away, standing up smoothly. Smart. He turned to Marco. Make it hurt. I want the Koslovs begging to give up everything they own by dawn. And Victor? He gets to watch while we dismantle his father's life's work. With pleasure, boss. As we walked out, Dante's hand found mine. His fingers were steady, but I could feel the adrenaline coursing through him, the barely contained violence. Back in the car, silence reigned. Then, are you going to run now? His voice was carefully neutral. Now that you've seen what I really am. I looked at him, truly looked, saw the blood on his cuffs, the cold fury still simmering in his eyes, the tension in every line of his body. No, I said. I'm going to kiss you. His surprise lasted only a heartbeat before I was in his lap, my mouth on his, channeling 4 days of fear and stress and decision into the kiss. He responded immediately, his hands fisting in my hair, his tongue demanding entrance that I gave willingly. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. You're not horrified, he said almost wonderingly. I'm terrified, but not of you, of how right this feels. I traced the line of his jaw. You protected Jamie. You kept your promise. That matters more than anything. Even the violence. Even that. I leaned my forehead against his. I'm not naive, Dante. I know what you do, who you are, and I'm choosing you anyway. All of you, the darkness and the light. His kiss this time was slower, deeper, filled with something that felt like reverence. When he pulled back, his eyes had softened. Take me home, I whispered. You're home. I'm done pretending. This isn't exactly where I want to be. The penthouse was dark when we arrived, but Dante didn't bother with the lights. He led me through the shadows to his bedroom, our bedroom now, I realized, and turned to face me in the moonlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Are you sure? His voice was rough. Because once we cross this line, Arya, there's no going back. You'll be mine in every way that matters. I signed the contract. I stood by you tonight. I'm already yours, Dante. This is just making it real. He closed the distance between us, his hands framing my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything I'd witnessed tonight. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Do you know that? Or the craziest? Maybe both. He kissed me softly, slowly, like he had all the time in the world, like he was memorizing the taste of me, the shape of my mouth against his. Then his hands found the zipper of my dress, and the gentleness evaporated into something urgent and desperate. We came together like storm fronts colliding, all heat and hunger, and the desperate need to affirm life in the face of violence. Later, wrapped in his arms with the city lights painting patterns on the walls, I felt his lips brush my temple. I love you, he murmured into my hair. I know it's too soon, I know you probably can't say it back yet, but I need you to know. You walked into my life and reminded me I'm human, that I can feel something besides duty and anger. I love you, Arya, completely, irrevocably. My heart stuttered. I turned in his arms, seeing the vulnerability in his face, the fear that I'd reject this offering. I love you too, I whispered and felt him tense in surprise. It's insane and terrifying and absolutely real. I love you, Dante Salvatore. All of you. His smile was pure joy, transforming his face. He kissed me again, and I tasted happiness and promise and forever in that kiss. Outside, the city hummed with life, unaware that in a penthouse overlooking the lake, two broken people had found something worth fighting for, each other. Morning came too soon, sunlight streaming through windows we'd forgotten to cover. I woke wrapped in Dante's arms, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. For a moment, I let myself drift, warm, safe, loved. Then my phone rang. Elena's name flashed on the screen. I must have tensed because Dante stirred, frowning. Ignore it. I can't. Not after last night. Not after. I answered. Elena, we need to talk. Her voice was cold, controlled. About the contract. About what you think you're getting into. I already know. You know nothing. Meet me in 1 hour. The cafe on Randolph and Wabash. Come alone or I'll make sure your precious brother knows exactly what kind of family he's now associated with. The line went dead. Dante was already sitting up, fury radiating from him. What did she say? I told him. He cursed in Italian, reaching for his phone. I'll have Marco. No. I caught his hand. She said, come alone. If I bring security, she'll panic, do something stupid. Then I'll come with you. Dante, she'll run. And if she starts spreading information about Jamie, about your family, things get messy. I cupped his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. I can handle her. I'm not some fragile thing that needs protecting from a jealous ex-girlfriend. Ex-fiancé, he corrected grimly. And she's dangerous when cornered. Her family has connections, resources. I don't trust her not to hurt you. So give me a panic button. Wire me. Do whatever you need to feel better. But I'm meeting her. He didn't like it, that much was clear, but eventually he nodded. 30 minutes later, I left the penthouse wearing a tiny earpiece and a necklace that doubled as a GPS tracker. I'm listening. Dante's voice came through, soft and steady. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you get out. Promise me. Promise. The cafe was busy, filled with morning commuters grabbing coffee before work. Elena sat at a corner table looking immaculate in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to. She didn't smile when I approached. Sit. I sat. What do you want, Elena? To save you from making a mistake. She pushed a folder across the table. Open it. Inside were photographs, Dante with various women over the years at restaurants, charity events, leaving hotels. Nothing scandalous, exactly, but clearly curated to tell a story. He's a player, Elena said. He always has been. You think you're special because you stood up to him in some diner? You think that makes you different from all the other women who caught his eye for a week, a month, before he got bored? I think you're bitter because he chose me over you. I closed the folder. And desperate enough to try psychological warfare when you realize you've already lost. Her expression hardened. You don't know what you're getting into with the Salvatore family. They'll eat you alive. You're not one of them. You'll never be one of them. You're just some novelty. I'm his wife. I leaned forward. Legally, officially, in every way that matters. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can move on with your life. He doesn't love you. He can't. He doesn't know how. You're wrong. I stood. I'm done with this conversation. And even if you weren't, it wouldn't change anything. I'm not leaving him. Not for jealous exes. Not for dangerous rivals. Not for anything. Her laugh was sharp, brittle. You'll regret that confidence. When his world crushes you, when you realize love isn't enough to survive in the darkness he lives in, you'll wish you'd listened. Maybe. I started to walk away, then paused. But at least I'll have tried. At least I'll have taken the chance. What will you have, Elena? Bitterness and what-ifs. I left her sitting there, feeling Dante's presence in my ear. You did good, he murmured. Now get back here so I can remind you exactly why you chose me. But as I stepped outside, something felt wrong. The street was too quiet. The usual bustle of morning foot traffic had disappeared. I looked around, my heart beginning to race. Then I saw them. 3 men moving toward me with purpose. Not Dante's men. Not anyone I recognized. Dante, I whispered. I see them. Run now. Back into the cafe. Too late. A van pulled up, door sliding open. Strong hands grabbed me, pulling me inside before I could scream. A cloth pressed over my mouth and nose. Sickly sweet. Everything went dark. I woke to ringing ears and a splitting headache. Wherever I was, it was dark, cold, and smelled of oil and old metal. A warehouse, a basement. She's awake. A light clicked on, blinding me. I squinted, making out shapes. 3 men, no 4. And in the shadows beyond them, someone else, someone whose presence felt wrong in a way that made my skin crawl. Mrs. Salvatore. The voice was cultured, accented. Russian, maybe. Forgive the crude accommodations. This won't take long. Who are you? My voice came out hoarse. Victor's father, Dmitry Koslov. He stepped into the light, and I saw an older man, distinguished, with cold eyes that held no mercy. Your husband took something from my son, humiliated him, destroyed property that took generations to build. That requires recompense. So you kidnapped me? That's your answer? No. This is a message. He nodded to one of his men. When Dante gets the video of what comes next, he'll understand. Actions have consequences, even for the great Salvatore family. Fear spiked through me, sharp and cold. But underneath it, something else. Anger, fury that this man thought he could use me as a prop in his power play. You've made a mistake, I said quietly. Dmitry laughed. Have I? Yes, because Dante will come for me. And when he does, he won't show mercy. He won't negotiate. He'll burn your entire family to the ground and salt the earth behind him. I met his eyes, channeling every ounce of Dante's cold fury that I'd witnessed. I'm not just his wife. I'm his line in the sand. You just crossed it. For the first time, doubt flickered across Dmitry's face. Then the lights went out. Gunfire erupted in the darkness, and I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Dante's voice roaring my name. The next minutes were chaos. Gunfire, shouts in multiple languages, the smell of cordite and fear. Someone grabbed me in the darkness, and I fought on instinct until I heard, Arya, it's me. It's Marco. Dante's cousin pulled me behind a concrete pillar as bullets ricocheted around us. Stay down. The boss is losing his mind. And then I saw him. Dante moved through the darkness like vengeance personified. No hesitation, no mercy, just brutal, efficient violence. He wasn't the man who'd held me this morning, who'd whispered love against my skin. This was the Dante who'd built an empire on fear and respect, who commanded loyalty through sheer force of will. This was the monster the Koslovs had unleashed. Dmitry tried to run. He made it maybe 10 feet before Dante had him against a wall, a gun pressed under his chin. You took my wife. Dante's voice was unnaturally calm, which somehow made it more terrifying. You put your hands on her, scared her, threatened her. Give me one reason I shouldn't end your bloodline right now. Dante, don't. I pushed past Marco, stumbling toward them. Don't kill him. He didn't look at me, didn't move. Arya, get back. No. Listen to me. If you kill him, this never ends. His family will retaliate. More violence, more blood, more danger. But if you let him live, if you show mercy, you prove you're better than them. He doesn't deserve mercy. Maybe not, but I do. I deserve a husband who comes home to me, not one who's always looking over his shoulder for the next revenge plot. I moved closer, my hand gentle on his arm. I'm safe. You found me. That's what matters. Let the rest go. For a long moment, nothing happened. The warehouse held its breath. Then Dante slowly lowered the gun. You have 24 hours, he said to Dmitry, his voice like ice. Take your son and leave Chicago permanently. If I ever see either of you again, if I ever hear your name whispered in connection with my family, I will forget this mercy, and what happened to your businesses will look kind compared to what I do to you personally. Are we clear? Dmitry nodded frantically. Dante released him with a shove, then turned to me. His expression cracked, and suddenly he was just a man. Terrified, relieved, barely holding himself together. He crossed the distance between us in 2 strides and pulled me against him, his arms shaking. "I thought I lost you." He breathed into my hair. "I heard them take you, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just had to get to you. I'm okay. I'm right here." I held him just as tightly. "You found me. You always will." "Always," he agreed roughly. "For the rest of our lives, Arya. You're mine and I'm yours. And nothing will ever take you from me again." 3 months later, I stood in the bathroom of the penthouse, staring at 2 pink lines on a plastic stick, my heart racing for entirely different reasons than the night I was kidnapped. Pregnant. We'd been careful, mostly. But there had been that night after we'd finalized Jamie's transfer to a safer university, when celebration had led to passion, had led to falling asleep, tangled together, without thinking about consequences. I was going to be a mother. Dante was going to be a father. The thought was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. "Arya." Dante's voice from the bedroom. "You okay? You've been in there a while." I opened the door. He looked up from his laptop, concern crossing his face when he saw my expression. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." I crossed to him, holding out the test. "Everything's different, but not wrong." He stared at the test, then at me, then back at the test. "You're pregnant," he stated, like it was the most unbelievable thing he'd ever heard. "About 6 weeks, I think." "I'm sorry. I know we didn't plan." He kissed me hard, desperate, joyful. When he pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. "Sorry, Arya, this is everything. You're giving me a family, a real family, a second chance to do it right." His hand moved to my still flat stomach with a reverence that made my throat tight. "I love you. God, I love you so much. I love you too." I covered his hand with mine. "But I need you to promise me something. This child, they grow up different than you did. They know love before they know fear. They understand power but also compassion. They get to choose their path, not have it chosen for them. I promise." His voice was thick with emotion. "Our child, they'll know safety and love. I'll make sure of it. I'll be better than my father, better than the men who came before me." "You're already better. You let Dimitri go. You chose mercy when vengeance would have been easier. That's the man our child needs." He kissed me again, softer this time. "Thank you for choosing me, for staying when anyone sensible would have run, for giving me reasons to be more than what I was raised to be. Thank you for seeing me, for loving the waitress who talked back, not just the wife who fit your world." I smiled against his lips. "We're going to be okay. All of us. More than okay." He pulled me into his lap, holding me close. "We're going to be extraordinary." 1 year later, I stood in the nursery, rocking our daughter, Isabella Sofia Salvatore, named for his mother and the grandmother she'd never meet, but would always carry with her. She'd fallen asleep nursing, her tiny hand fisted in my shirt, completely trusting. Dante appeared in the doorway, still in his suit from whatever meeting he'd just left. But when he saw us, everything else fell away. He crossed the room silently and pressed a kiss to our daughter's dark hair, then to my temple. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She is, even when she's screaming at 3 in the morning." He smiled that real smile that he saved only for us, especially then. "She's got your fire and your stubbornness. God help us when she's a teenager." I laughed softly, careful not to wake Bella. "We'll handle it together." "Together," he agreed. "Then I have something for you." He pulled out a small box, and my heart fluttered. We'd married quickly, practically eloped. The original wedding was a courthouse affair with just Lorenzo and Valentina as witnesses. But Dante had been planning something. I knew. Some gesture to make up for the romance we'd skipped. Inside the box was a ring. Not an engagement ring, we were past that, but something else. A wide band of gold with diamonds set in a pattern that formed a single word. "Semper," he translated, his voice low. "Always. That's what you are to me, Arya. Always. Through every challenge, every danger, every quiet morning and chaotic night, you're my always." I kissed him, pouring everything I felt, love, gratitude, bone-deep certainty, into the connection. When we pulled apart, he slid the ring onto my finger, where it nestled against my wedding band like it had always belonged. "You're my always, too," I whispered. "My dangerous, beautiful, impossible always." We stood there in the nursery, our daughter asleep between us, the city sprawling below through tall windows. Somewhere out there, the Salvatore Empire continued its operations. Deals were made. Territory was protected. The darkness still existed. But here, in this room, there was only light, only love, only a family built from impossible beginnings, stronger for everything we'd survived. I'd walked into a diner and talked back to a Mafia boss.